I never believed in ghosts, but that was before my second year in college. Our dorm was one of the oldest buildings on campus, built in the early 1900s. Most of the time I found its creaky floors and dimly lit hallways charming, even cozy. But at night, everything changed. One night, I stayed up late in the study lounge, trying to finish an essay that was due the next day. When I finally decided to head back to my room, the clock read 3:15 a.m. I grabbed my things, turned off the lights, and stepped into the hallway. That's when I heard it. A whisper, soft, barely audible, coming from the far end of the hallway. I froze, my heart pounding. The hall was empty. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like a hushed conversation between two people. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice echoed, but no one answered. I walked slowly down the hallway, trying to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. As I got closer, the whispering grew louder, but still, the words were impossible to decipher. I was now just a few feet away from where I thought the sound originated, near the old supply closet. The door was slightly ajar. I reached out, my hand trembling, and pushed it open. The whispering stopped abruptly, replaced by a chilling silence. I felt a rush of cold air brush past me, as if something had darted out of the closet and down the hallway. I looked inside. Nothing but old cleaning supplies and a broken chair. Just as I turned to leave, I heard a faint, drawn-out whisper right next to my ear. "Get out." I ran down the hall without looking back. When I reached my room, I slammed the door shut and locked it. I didn't sleep at all that night, and I never used that hallway again. A few weeks later, I found out that in the 1960s, a student had died under mysterious circumstances right in front of that supply closet. Some say she still haunts the hall, whispering secrets of her untimely demise to anyone foolish enough to listen. As a freshman, I loved spending my afternoons in the library. It was quiet, peaceful, a perfect escape from the chaos of campus life. But there was one part of the library that always seemed off limits, the old locked room on the third floor. The door was heavy, painted black, with a small plaque that read "Restricted Access." I'd heard rumors about the room. Some said it was a storage area. Others whispered it was a secret archive of the university's darkest history. But what caught my attention was the story of a student who had vanished in the library over 30 years ago. According to the legend, he was last seen entering that very room. One day, curiosity got the best of me. I had found an old key on the floor near the librarian's desk the week before and pocketed it, hoping it was for that mysterious door. I waited until the library was about to close, making sure everyone had left. My hands were sweating as I approached the door. The key fit. The door creaked open to reveal a dimly lit room. Dust particles floated in the air, illuminated by a single flickering bulb. The walls were lined with shelves filled with old books, many of them with spines so worn they were unreadable. In the center of the room was a large wooden table, covered in papers. As I stepped inside, I felt a sudden drop in temperature. The air was heavy, oppressive. I moved toward the table, trying to read the scattered papers, but they were all in some language I couldn't understand. I turned around to leave, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. I rushed to it, yanking the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Then I heard a soft scratching noise coming from behind me. I turned slowly and saw, in the far corner of the room, a shadow that didn't belong. It was a human shape, tall and thin, hunched over as if reading from one of the books on the shelves. My heart stopped as the shadow slowly lifted its head and turned to face me. There were no eyes, just dark, hollow pits. I screamed, pounding on the door, desperate to get out. The shadow started moving toward me, its form wavering, almost like smoke. I could feel my breath hitching, my heart racing. Finally, just as the figure was inches away, the door burst open and I stumbled out into the hallway. The librarian stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "You shouldn't be in there," she whispered, closing the door behind me and locking it. "That room, it's not for the living. I never returned to that library." But sometimes, late at night, I can still hear the faint sound of scratching, like pages turning coming from the third floor. It started with little things. At first, I didn't think much of it. My roommate, Lily, had always been a bit scatterbrained, losing her keys, forgetting her phone, misplacing her textbooks. But this was different. It began with her bed. One morning I woke up to find it perfectly made, untouched, as if she hadn't slept in it. Her side of the room was unnaturally tidy. Lily was a messy person by nature. This was off. I texted her, but she didn't reply. I assumed she had crashed at a friend's place, but she didn't come back the next day, or the day after. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and none of our friends had seen her. By the end of the week, I was worried enough to report it to campus security. They said they would look into it, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. A week passed, then two. I tried not to think about it, focusing on my classes instead. But then, things started to get stranger. I would wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of whispering. At first I thought it was coming from outside, but then I realized it was coming from Lily's side of the room. I'd sit up, turn on the light, and the whispering would stop. The bed would be made, just as untouched as before. I felt like I was going crazy. One night I heard the whispers again, louder this time, urgent, almost pleading. I turned on my bedside lamp, and there she was. Lily, standing by her bed, her eyes wide and hollow, her skin pale as death. "Lily?" I whispered, my voice shaking. She didn't answer. She just stood there staring at me, her mouth moving, forming words I couldn't hear. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, unable to speak or scream. Lily's face twisted into a look of despair, and she whispered something I finally understood. "Help me." And then, she vanished. I woke up the next morning, unsure if it had been a dream, but when I turned to look at her bed, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A single word scratched into the wall above her headboard. Trapped. No one ever found Lily. Her parents pulled her things from the room a week later. I moved out shortly after, but I still wake up sometimes hearing her voice, still whispering, still pleading, still trapped.
That's a cool dog you got there, mister. Oh, yeah, dude, you can pet him if you want. He's really chill. Oh, okay.